All right, and this is Discussions of Truth coming at you at the 6 o'clock hour. That is Eastern Standard Time, regular time slot, 5 o'clock p.m. Wednesdays. I am here for you. We just got done with A. Ralph Epperson. We started the special edition here. This is a 4-hour quadruple installment of Discussions of Truth. We started the first hour with UK-based Tobias Churton, who is an Oxford-educated scholar who has written extensively about the life of Aleister Crowley. If you're not familiar with him and his Gnostic mystic works, traveling the world, ascending to high peaks such as K2, do make yourself familiar with him. Again, A. Ralph Epperson is based out of Arizona. He's a historian, American historian, and he uncovers what is considered the New World Order. What is that? Now, he revealed some very interesting information. There was a technical glitch throughout the program with him. I haven't actually experienced that one before. I've experienced others. We have been broadcasting remotely out of studio for a couple of months. That's the first time I experienced that one. But he did have some very interesting information he revealed regarding a group out of Quebec. And that applies directly to the New World Order. Now, if you were listening to the Tobias edition today at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard, I was giving a parallel on Mexico, the Spanish conquistadors. Look, this is what you're looking at economically. You're looking at a system politically. You're looking at a system that has morphed through the ages, but the nexus of it, as that New World Order is written in Latin on the back of the U.S. dollar bill, the nexus of it is rooted from Rome in every element that I can see. And then you can draw current parallels today with the Federal Reserve, the District of Columbia, the Corporation of London, the Bank of England, and the Vatican and its banks, all being sovereign entities to the countries in which they occupy geographic space. So that is kind of what you're looking at today. Now, you apply a threat, a terroristic element of life, a scare. And again, I'm not saying that the coronavirus isn't dangerous, but what I am questioning is, why does Zero Hedge, which is a blog, why do they get banned from Twitter for posting an alternative view in regards to the outbreak of the coronavirus? A. Ralph Epperson, American historian, just said that China is a puppet to the international bankers. Does that make sense to you? Well, if it does, then I urge you and invite you to look at the work of Anthony Sutton. Okay, and you know what? Look at the work of A. Ralph Epperson. But Anthony Sutton is a former Stanford Hoover Fellow. Look, I started this program. It's now in its 4th year. I started it because I started looking into the Zika scare. 2016, Miami Beach, crop dusters flying overhead, spraying a pesticide. Total invasion of one's space. When you've got the majority of people on Miami Beach saying, hey, no, don't spray us with this neurotoxin. It's banned by the European Union. Puerto Rico is rejecting a shipment of it from the World Health Organization. You're going to feed us with this stuff? And Broward to the north is using a safe organic pesticide. You're gonna use it on us, and they used it in Wynwood, they used it in Miami Beach, and there was nothing any of the people could do about it that were out in Nasby. And yes, everything I found out was that the Rockefellers owned a patent on the Zika extraction process. They still own it. 1940s, Africa, Uganda forest. And they were the largest shareholders of the pesticide that was developed 10 years after that in the 1950s by the Chevron Chemical Corporation. Rockefellers have hands in both. So then I get into the Hegelian dialectic, thanks to Anthony Sutton and the work he did at Stanford, and the speech he gave in Miami Beach in 1972 political convention for the Republican Party, which he returned to Palo Alto and was reprimanded and said, hey, if you ever divulge that information about Prescott Bush and Nazi Germany and the banking, then you'll be excused from Stanford University. So he says, within a year, he says, that's fine. And he started publishing his own books, and as a matter of fact, he started publishing with Trine Day. Now, Trine Day will also be releasing next month, Freedom Reserved, No More Lies. And that is a book that has been authored by myself. I am Ian Hamilton Trottier. Donate to the program at iantrottier.com. You can listen to me here every Wednesday, 5 o'clock Eastern Standard. Wednesdays, 5 o'clock Eastern Standard on Stop Mass Media and Windward1.com. Not affiliated with Westwood One, by the way. Not affiliated. Totally private, independent. Now, like I said earlier, we are in a quadruple header today. We started with Tobias Churn, we went with A. Ralph Epperson, and we're going to be ending next hour with J.P. Lindstroth. J.P.'s got a PhD from Harvard. Oxford, former Fulbright scholar. Tobias is educated at Oxford, so we have two Oxford scholars joining the program in those 4 hours. A. Ralph Epperson, University of Arizona, and now we're going to bring on Makia Freeman. He'll be first time joining the program. He is an alternative views writer. And he will, I'd imagine, be discussing the coronavirus in depth in regards to the New World Order agendas accompanying the coronavirus outbreak, how that looks for you, wherever you are, whether you're on lockdown in England, in the Philippines, wherever you may be, in California, New York. What's your status? Because here it comes. All right, bringing on Makia Freeman, dialing in right now.
Hello, can I help you?
Yes, you can, certainly. Makia Freeman, you are on Discussion of Truth. This is Ian Trottier. Welcome to the program, sir.
Yes, hi Ian, how are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Makia, thanks for joining the program. It's first time joining. We appreciate your time. Would you please, for listeners, please tell a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I'm an independent researcher and alternative journalist, and I'm the editor of the Freedom Articles. I've been researching the conspiracy, who's running the world, how they're doing it, the New World Order, and all the related topics for well over 10 years. So I have a lot of articles there, a lot of information, and just recently tracking this whole coronavirus fake pandemic that's happening, that's an excuse for all these emergency powers and lockdowns that's happening worldwide right as we speak.
Love it. Makia, do I hear a British accent? Australian. Okay. No, so this is interesting now. Julian Assange's defense team, do you want to go into that a little bit before we get into the coronavirus? They're using coronavirus as a way to possibly get him out. Have you heard that?
Yes, I've heard that, although the latest I read was that the corrupt judge over there, the magistrate Vanessa Bareitza, denied him getting out for that. But yes, I was following the Assange case. I have quite a few articles on that on my website, thefreedomarticles.com. I don't think there's such a big case about the freedom of speech as Assange. I mean, it is a truly massive, massive case, and if we let a free speech activist and a publisher go to jail just for the supposed crime of publishing truths that are uncomfortable to the government, then we're really in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks, Makia, and I appreciate what you've been doing now for over 10 years. What is going on now, in your view, regarding the coronavirus? We've got different countries on lockdown. We've got the state of California on complete ground to a halt. New York, some of the big economies globally, those being in the United States, for instance, are again at a standstill. We're looking at a complete possible transformation in the way we know life, and what you're saying is that it's not simply a health issue here. This is a larger agenda. How do you explain what you see unfolding here?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question. So to answer that, I'll have to go into a bit of depth, a bit of background. So we're going to begin by saying that this kind of thing, when it was first unfolding, people might have naturally thought, well, it's, viruses, pandemics happen all the time. They've happened in human history. So, people would naturally think it's just another natural outbreak. But then piece by piece, step by step, information has come out. And we're beginning to put the pieces of the puzzle together here to see that this thing isn't a natural thing, and it's not just a coincidental random outbreak. It's been a carefully planned and engineered crisis. And now the authorities all around the world are capitalizing on this to exploit this, to pass emergency power bills, and to basically roll out all these different agendas, which are all part of the New World Order agenda. And it's all coming together. So to kind of give you the background to this, basically, I'll start by pointing your listeners to a Rockefeller Foundation paper that was published in 2010. And that was basically predicting how a pandemic could be used as an excuse to establish global authoritarian power. So that paper laid out the plan of what you could do, and it's a very simple recipe. It's basically you get people scared, you get them frightened, you get them panicked, you hype up the threat, whatever it is. In this case, it's a pandemic, and then people are in fear and they're not thinking rationally, and they look outside of themselves for someone to save them, normally some government agency. And then the government agency says, well, we can kind of help you and save you, but you're going to have to give us more power. And so it's a really tried and true formula. David Icke calls it problem, reaction, solution. The Freemasons, who are a very influential secret society, they have a motto of ordo ab chaos, which is a Latin phrase meaning order out of chaos. It's also been described as the Hegelian dialectic after a philosopher Hegel, who talked about the thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. But it's, however, whatever you want to qualify it by, it's the same basic idea, which is basically you just shake things up, you frighten people, you get people out of the status quo, you introduce some new threat, and then you make all the changes that you've been secretly wanting to make all this time, and you do it under the guise of saving people or having to respond to some crisis. So basically, the Rockefeller Foundation paper laid this out in 2010, how they could exploit a pandemic. Then in around October 18th, in New York, there was an Event 201 pandemic simulation preparedness event led by Bill Gates. The CDC was there, big pharma representatives were there. So they were all simulating something, and guess what they were simulating? A coronavirus. And they later said, well, it's not the same coronavirus that broke out. This was just a general coronavirus, and it wasn't a prediction, and they did all this backpedaling. But they were simulating already for this. Then you have the Chinese government as well. I have an article on the Freedom Articles where I talk about how there was possible Chinese government foreknowledge as well, because they were planning for something 30 days before it happened, an outbreak of a virus. Then you have the military games in Wuhan that were held also on October 18th. And it's very suspicious when you look at all these different organizations and groups that were planning for this, or actively simulating, or running exercises, or preparing for it in some way or another, and then it happened. So that's the background to it. Then, at first it looked like a kind of a horrible thing, and the cases were going through the roof in China, then started spreading to other countries. But now we're at the stage where, it's March 25th, and we're looking at the global deaths of this thing. And so far, the estimates are in that it's around about 20,000 deaths. Now, of course, we all feel sorry for the people that have died from this, but we have to ask ourselves, why is the world freaking out and going to this this level of craziness and madness over 20,000 deaths. Because if you look at the statistics just in the U.S. alone, from the CDC, take like the last 10 years of stats, they show that the seasonal flu normally kills around between 12,000 and 60,000 people, depending on the year. So you've got, 12 to 60,000 deaths every year just in the U.S. from the flu on one hand, and from this coronavirus you have 20,000 worldwide deaths.
Right.
So it doesn't make any sense. You can't. There's no real way to justify the hysteria if you just look at the cold hard numbers. So this thing is definitely being hyped and exploited, and there's really no doubt about that anymore. And they've got people in all this fear. They've got people afraid to shake hands, afraid to socialize, afraid to hug, touch, congregate, and now they've even got people, all the people that are working jobs where they're just kind of going month to month, and they're working for a wage, and they don't. And even businesses, small business owners, all these people are going to be destroyed. It's really going to totally wreck the economy over something that's nowhere near as bad as a seasonal flu.
Right. No, this is, and I think one of the scary elements here is it's grinding the economy, these economies to a halt, and it's certainly keeping the non-questioning of authority, if you will, taxpayer confined to their little hub, putting them further into debt. But one of the kind of the scary elements here is now you got the National Guard deployed anyway in California, and I think New York and a couple other states, at least one other, New Jersey maybe, I'm not sure. But what I heard today from somebody in the Philippines is that now you've got the government going door to door. So if you're kind of looking at, you're talking about the Hegelian dialectic and kind of controlling opposites, you've got kind of a fear now of Nazi Germany, and so what's the next step to elevate this? Well, then you can kind of insert a mandatory vaccination type scenario. Where do you see if that's something that you do apply, where you're starting? The Stafford Act's been invoked, I believe. That's been now 10 days, I believe, and so now you're taking away habeas corpus. You're declaring a national emergency. Again, I'm confining it to the United States. You're taking away due process, and so now basically, if you're moving in increments, minor increments, you're moving in a military operation. You're completely taking away human rights and what any human being can basically say for themselves. You're taking somebody. You're isolating somebody who's got the coronavirus per se. You're ostracizing them. You can kind of put them in a FEMA camp. You can take them away from their family, put them in a FEMA camp. What are your thoughts on that sort of thing as far as human rights? What type of violations do you see unfolding as a possibility here?
Yes, everything you just outlined is happening as we speak. The Department of Justice in the U.S., we can talk about the U.S. to begin with. The Attorney General is Barr. He's, interestingly enough, the same guy that has pathetically overseen the Jeffrey Epstein case. And I've been following that. I have quite a few articles on that. Barr is actually linked to Epstein through his father employing Epstein years ago. And, that was a massive scandal that exposed all the pedophilia that's going on in the world that's rife. I mean, it's touching all these top politicians, businessmen, celebrities, and William Barr's done nothing about that. And everyone knows that Epstein didn't kill himself. It became a very common and popular meme throughout, last year, people posting it all the time, all these different memes of Epstein didn't kill himself. So he's the guy that's overseeing this and is absolutely doing nothing and, contributing to the cover-up. So this guy Barr now wants to have the Department of Justice suspend normal constitutional rights and, as you said, detain people indefinitely without trial, which is the same kind of thing they were doing after 9/11. And they basically want to override all these things that people have fought so hard to enact in the U.S. I mean, it's another thing he's asking to do is basically asking to stop the courts during an emergency, asking to have no jury there. So if you go back in time and look at like what the founding fathers said during the founding of the U.S. Republic, these things were very important to make sure that there was a decentralized limited government. And so the real worry here is that people are going to be too scared and not going to be thinking clearly or rationally about the real importance of having these fundamental rights, and they're just going to give them up to the government because they're scared right now about a virus that isn't even really that bad.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Did you know from the onset of this, Makia? Did you know once this broke? Now, actually, coincidentally enough, I started this program 4 years ago in Miami Beach because of the Zika outbreak. You probably remember that. And as I started looking into that, I was then taken to a Stanford Hoover fellow, Anthony Sutton, and he went into Hegelian dialectic, and what he talked about was Prescott Bush investing and giving money to Hitler Germany and also to the United States. So he's funding, like you're saying, he's funding both sides of the conflict. But what was interesting is that I found Rockefeller hands not only owning the patent of the extraction of the Zika virus from the macabre monkey in Uganda forest, but also owning the pesticide that was being forced on the Miami Beach population. And you've got that as a known neurotoxin, which causes microcephaly in developing fetus. And that's from a study out of Sweden, I think it was, Oslo. So that's kind of the inception of this program. And here you've got 4 years later, you've got coronavirus. So it's kind of this Zika cold flu-like symptoms, which was the same thing we lived in the Zika scare. You've got that now magnified on a global agenda, which is now pushing censorship. What are your comments regarding censorship, Makia? How do you see this? Do you see mandatory vaccinations happening, and then of course microchipping? Where do you see this? Where do you see the next step here with censorship?
Yes, I'll get onto that in just a second, but I do want to loop back and say that I was following the Zika outbreak as it happened, and I did come across the same information you just repeated, that basically the authorities hype a pandemic like this, and they make it seem like there's some scary thing happening when it's really not that bad. And then they have a vaccine that they have a patent on, and so then they have the solution in hand. So it's again the problem, reaction, solution. And the same thing is happening here with the coronavirus, because if you investigate it, you can find out that this same guy, Bill Gates, who's pushing for the whole world to be vaccinated and seems to be a New World Order frontman right now because he's behind so many of these agendas. So he has funded a company that owns the patent, Bright, and then he's also behind funding to a San Diego company, Inovio, that says that they have a vaccine already for the coronavirus. So it's the same kind of agenda. They're creating a problem deliberately, and then they're coming forward with the vaccine. So on to censorship. Yeah, the censorship has been a problem. Big tech companies are now getting in on it, and they're censoring, not even just burying or downranking or hiding articles and videos, but in some cases just deleting them. They're really trying to stop people from sharing information. They're trying to get everyone to go to one official source, which is the World Health Organization or the CDC. But they're of course in the hands and in the pockets of the New World Order, so obviously not to be trusted. But yes, the bigger problem really above censorship is the mandatory vaccinations, and that has been an agenda for quite a while. So if you've been following it, you can see that state by state, what they have been trying to do is to eliminate exemptions. So first they're eliminating philosophical exemptions or personal exemptions. Then they're eliminating religious exemptions. Then they're trying to eliminate medical exemptions, and they're even pressuring doctors not to write medical exemptions. And so different laws have been passed in New York and California particularly to try to tighten the noose and to eliminate these. And some states such as Hawaii have made it now, trying to make it so that your child can't go to school unless they have vaccinations. Right. So this is an agenda that's been happening, in the background before this whole crisis. And now that this has happened, they're trying to get even more people on board. First of all, by scaring them and just saying, well, there's this horrible virus, so you're going to have to be vaccinated to be safe against it. But then there's going to be the public shaming aspect of, oh, well, you're not vaccinated, so you're not doing your part for the community. And that's based on the whole pseudoscientific myth of herd immunity. And a particularly sinister aspect of the vaccines is that, that we already know that they're full of toxins. They have things like formaldehyde and aluminum and mercury sometimes in them, as well as all sorts of other stuff, which is completely toxic to the human body. And they have known carcinogens and mutagens inside of them. But on top of that, now Bill Gates, that man again, is putting microchips inside of them, and he's even come out and said this.
Interesting.
Recently, he made a comment that he wants everyone to have digital certificates. He wants to put some chip in the vaccines and then have the technology to scan people and read that chip and read your medical history and see if you've been vaccinated or not, read other things about you. So this is really culminating in a very, very dangerous agenda, the human microchipping agenda. And if we allow governments to do this, either to trick us or scare us or force us into getting vaccinated, we've really, really lost the fight here, because that's complete tyranny. I mean, that is complete medical fascism, to allow the state to have the authority to have over your body and to tell you what you can put in your body or not. And once we allow that, and once if people get chipped, then it's really going to be a very difficult fight to ever regain freedom, because we don't know really anything at all about how these chips are going to be used in the future. It's quite possible that these chips could be remote controlled. It's quite possible that once the chips are inside your body, that the ruling class have the technology to broadcast certain things to those chips. They could affect your emotions, they could affect your thoughts, they could influence you in ways that you can't even imagine. And then you're basically going to become like a robot, like a machine, like a node on the grid. And this agenda is being rolled out with the 5G agenda, the fifth generation wireless,
right.
And that's connected to this whole thing as well.
Right. So for listeners out there, I just came across a study, PubMed.ncbi. NLM.nih.gov. It's 2017. So you alluded to these Rockefeller papers and the coronavirus being a theater epidemic, if you will, which it is now today. It seems in New York, and actually the name coronavirus being used. So here, 2017, PubMed actually a study saying that flu vaccination, those injected with the flu vaccination amongst their study and their population of study have a 36% chance, a higher chance of obtaining the coronavirus. So you're talking about vaccinations and flu vaccinations, and mandatory vaccinations, and the microchipping. This is a insane concern here for listeners, and please be aware. But let me ask you a question here, Makia, and it goes to your DC Dirty Laundry article. Is the coronavirus epidemic a race-based? You talk about eugenics and that and whatnot, but is the coronavirus epidemic a race-based bioweapon?
That's a very good question. Originally, I thought that it might be, because it seemed to be targeting Chinese and at least Asian people. It went to South Korea a lot. It seemed to be targeting them disproportionately. But now that it's spread around the world, it's hard to say. I think there is some evidence that it might be. I have an article on the Freedom Articles called "China Will Catch a Cold," and that is a brief article about a very interesting interview that was done by Project Camelot. It was released in 2010, so it's 10 years ago. It's been on the public record for a while, and in that interview, they were interviewing an Illuminati insider who was anonymous, but he said he went to a City of London meeting where, and as you know, the City of London is the financial center of the world, very, very powerful. The people are very high up there. And they were talking about this plan that they were going to release a bioweapon that was going to be targeted against the Chinese. They were going to release it in China. And they kind of jokingly said, China will catch a cold. And so this meeting happened in 2005. And this insider had some conscience and felt guilty and decided to go public with it in 2010. And he reported the plan then. So I think there's definitely a possibility that it is a bioweapon that's racially targeted. However, it's also possible that what we're seeing around the world are different strains. There may have been a strain that was released in Iran, there may have been a different strain again that was released in Italy that spread to the rest of Europe now. I do find it very interesting that, and beyond coincidence, because there's just too many coincidences here. And one clue when you're studying all this conspiratorial New World Order stuff, if you see a lot of coincidences happen, chances are they're actually not a coincidence and they're pointing to a deeper conspiracy. So the fact that the coronavirus infected so many Iranian lawmakers, so many people in the parliament of Iran, is just, to me, beyond coincidence. And Iran happens to be really on the chopping block. It's under attack by the U.S. and Israel all the time, and they're always thinking of ways they can undermine it. There's massive sanctions against Iran, which have caused a huge economic difficulty, and unfortunately, that's hit most of the Iranian people the worst. And the U.S. has been just itching to start a war with Iran for a long time, basically because it's following the Zionist foreign policy. So I do think that that's another clue here that this thing may have been targeted towards certain populations, but I don't think we quite have enough evidence to say for sure.
Now, I want to go back to your talk about the Corporation of London, which is interchangeable with the Bank of London, and that's certainly I talk about this on the program a lot. That controlling the foreign affairs of England, whereas the Queen of England must ask to enter and speak with the City of London in that regard, and this is the financial center of London, which has nothing to do with London, has nothing to do with England. It's an independent, sovereign organization. Last week we had on the program City University of London economist Roland Palin with co-author Anastasia Nesvetalova. The Hidden Nature of Finances, Sabotage is their latest, the book that they've co-authored, and he actually talked about the Corporation of London in that it predates. And this would be mind-boggling for listeners to really conceptualize, but it predates William the Conqueror of 1066, and he was actually, from my understanding, you can correct me and talk about this a little bit, Makia, but my understanding is that is a medieval, and even Roland said it was medieval, that was his term, it is a medieval system of banking that existed prior to William the Conqueror. He was unable to conquer it, and it has remained its own sovereign power up to this day of 2020, he alluded it, to being a Roman system. What are your thoughts and comments on that, Makia?
Yes, the City of London is part of a tripartite kind of organizational group. It's called, some people call it the Empire of the City. So you have the City of London, which is the World Financial Center. Then you have the Vatican City, which again is like the City of London. It's not part of Italy. It's its own sovereign country. It's the religious center. And then you have Washington, D.C., which is, D.C. stands for District of Columbia. It's a district that's separate to the 50 states. It's its own sovereign entity as well. So you have these three cities within a city, and each of them are within other cities, but they're not part of those countries where they're geographically located. And these are the three power centers through which the New World Order runs the world. And the City of London does have history going way back to the Knights Templar and other secret societies that first came up with this idea of fiat currency and basically making money out of nothing. And that has influenced all the development of the central banks in Europe through the Rothschilds. And it's the same scam basically that's continued from the Middle Ages up to today. And yes, centered there, which the City of London is home to a lot of Illuminati bloodlines.
But Makia, is this an American-driven agenda? Or where's the driving force behind this? Let's just assume listeners conceptualize this that they're whether it's this threat, the coronavirus threat, or it's another threat. It seems to be inevitable that there is a mandatory vaccination agenda developing. Like you said, Hawaii, California, a lot of these kids have to have these vaccinations to enter schools. Now you're saying Bill Gates has actually openly stated that there are microchips included in some of these vaccinations. If we take that, where is this being incepted from, in your view, Makia?
Well, I think this comes back to the nature of the New World Order, which is a group of people that basically want to have a world government. And so they're no longer part of one country in particular. And I know, looking at your website, you've gotten into researching some of these key groups, such as the Bilderberg Group and the Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission and other groups like this. So you have these key organizations and groups around the world, and that gives you a sense of what this organization is. But you've got people even above that they don't have any allegiance to a particular place or country or nation. They want a world government, and they're using countries to roll it out. They're using the U.S. military to bring countries under the heel, and you've seen this happen in the Middle East in the last 20 years, especially country after country being invaded and being occupied with U.S. bases and being brought into the empire. But ultimately, it's not about making the U.S. the leader of this empire. It's going to be about making all countries part of a global system where there'll be a one world bank, one world currency, and a microchip population, and a one world army. And then the people that are rolling this out want to be the overlords of that system, and they're going to basically destroy national sovereignty, including the U.S. And bring every country into this system. That's their agenda.
Yeah, and let's talk for a few moments about the cashless agenda. Of course, I mean one of the common things is, hey, you're being quarantined to your house, but when you do get let out to go to the store, and if you choose to pay with cash, you don't know where who's touched that cash and where that cash has been. So does that have the virus on it? Amazon facilities now are saying some of their workers have come down with the virus. So do you want to order from Amazon? It's this massive mass media scare tactic pushing agenda. But then let's step back and fold in cryptocurrency into that. How do you see that unfolding, Makia?
Yes, the cashless agenda is just yet another agenda that's being pushed out here. I mean, there's so many agendas, it's unbelievable. You've got censorship, it's surveillance, quarantines. Then you've got, as we said, mandatory vaccination, microchipping, cashless agenda. So many things are being pushed out now, which have been waiting in the wings. They're being slowly pushed forward. I've been researching this. I've been knowing that they're coming, and now suddenly they're just the authorities in every country are basically using the excuse to just suddenly roll these out and push them out while people are on lockdown and distracted and panicked and hyped. And it's a very blatant attempt for them to get away with this. And I really hope that people can remain calm and rational and really look and pay close attention to what's going on, because I believe the agenda is actually really transparent if you look at it. So the cashless agenda is basically the agenda to eliminate cash and to introduce digital currencies. And what that would do would give the government unprecedented control, because then they will be able to monitor and at least record every single financial transaction. So They'll know exactly what you're buying. If you buy books about certain things, they'll know what you're reading and what you're interested in. If you pay for certain services, they'll know that. So it's basically total control. There's no more anonymity or privacy.
Yeah.
And that has been an agenda for a while. And then knowing that, it's easy to kind of see these so-called leaders offer these pathetic excuses to try to justify it. For example, in China, they started saying, oh, well, the cash might spread the virus, so we're going to have to take cash out of circulation. And the World Health Organization head, Dr. Tedros, who is from Ethiopia, now he was actually accused of several corruption charges there in Ethiopia, but now he's the director of the WHO, which is a Rockefeller organization, the Rockefellers being one of the main New World Order bloodline families. So, he's basically, Tedros is saying, well, you better not use cash because it could carry the virus. Now, this is just a really blatant attempt to scare people and to get them to submit to this cashless agenda. We really have to think clearly during this whole thing, because it's just so easy to get caught up in the hype and panic. And then what happens is you go to your reptilian brain, the fight or flight part of your brain that wants to react and not think things through. But if you keep calm and you really look at this, I mean, there are so many assumptions that are underlying this whole thing. There's the assumptions that there is this killer virus out there, and that even if you get it, that it's going to cause all these problems. I mean, that's an assumption to begin with, because it's quite possible to have dormant viruses in your body that don't cause any problems at all. And they're completely fine. And another assumption is, oh, well, the virus can survive on surfaces for days. That's what we're being told. I would question that. I mean, I would question everything about this whole thing. I would not take anything the authorities say as truth, take it with a grain of salt, question everything. I don't believe that viruses can just survive on surfaces for days and days and days. I don't believe that's possible, but do your own research. Don't take it from me. See what you think. But they're using this excuse to push out the cashless agenda. And actually, I have an article on the Freedom Articles. Just the other day, the Democrats launched two bills in the House that mentioned for the first time digital dollar and a central bank digital currency. Yeah, so they're using this opportunity to try to roll that out. Now, in one of the bills, they took out that is still, I believe, in the other one, and so they're basically trying to force people that have been affected by this to sign up to get digital dollars and get a digital wallet, and it's going to be a central bank digital currency that's overseen by the Federal Reserve and the U.S. government. So yet another agenda that's being pushed under our noses right as we speak.
That's remarkable, and that's found at your website, Makia.
Yes, thefreedomarticles.com. Check it out. I have quite a few articles on the coronavirus. I've been following this very closely. There's a lot of information is just exploding all over the place now. Everything is almost changing by the hour and by the day. So please visit the Freedom Articles to keep up to date.
So W. Gifford Jones, as we wind down here, W. Gifford Jones is a Harvard-educated MD based out of Toronto, I believe it is. He's Canadian. He said on the program a couple weeks ago that vitamin C, taken intravenously, would kill any virus. He stood by that. He's 96 years old, including the coronavirus. So listeners out there, take that to note. But Makia, let's spend a couple minutes here as we wind down. Let's talk about resolution. Certainly reading your website, reading your publications, reading others that are aligned with your view of what's unfolding helps. But for listeners out there, what's some resolution? What's some steps? Some steps that can be taken. Of course, I'm not sure where you're located right now, but you are Australian. But this is a global thing. So regardless of wherever anybody is, it's an element of, yes, going to your local politicians. Certainly in the United States, going to the Senate or where it may be, make a change. What are some steps from your view, Makia, that you would impress upon listeners of what they can do to make a change?
Yes, good question. So first of all, I think the most important thing is to keep calm, keep rational. Okay, don't buy into all the fear and hype. So this virus seems to be only mostly affecting people with weakened immune systems, the elderly. So do your best. If you're in one of those brackets, try to take extra precautions. But for most people, it's not going to be a problem. There's people that have contracted this and they've only had very mild symptoms, or no symptoms at all. So you don't have to freak out is the first thing. Second thing is question everything that the authorities are telling you. Question the need for it. The third thing I would say is practice good hygiene. I mean, it's always good to practice good hygiene. So wash your hands for 20 seconds with soap carefully. Wipe down surfaces. Just take good hygienic precautions. Fourth thing is, it's always good, I think, to have on hand a range of natural supplements. And there's plenty of great natural supplements out there that can really boost your immune system. And coming back to the first point that I made about keeping calm, fear is one of the things that suppresses the immune system most. So if you're stressed out and afraid, then that itself is going to lower your immune system, and that is going to make you more susceptible to this. So germs don't just attack us. There's different theories out there about germs, and the germ theory has become kind of the main one that has influenced Western medicine. But there was also another theory called terrain theory, and that's all about your gut and your immune system and your microbiome. And by keeping that strong, you can keep yourself strong and you can make yourself less susceptible and able to resist pathogens. So focus on that. Focus on building your own immunity. And then you're not going to have to worry so much about contracting anything. As you said, vitamin C. And in China, they use intravenous vitamin C, and they're using that in New York hospitals as well, and it's working. And so, take vitamin C, take vitamin D. A lot of people get way insufficient vitamin D in the winter, especially when the sunshine is less, and then their immune system isn't as strong. So take vitamin C and D. Take natural antiviral supplements such as olive leaf extract. That's really powerful against all kinds of viruses. So there are a lot of natural things, garlic, colloidal silver. There's a lot of natural things you can take that will boost your immune system, and then you're not going to have to be into much fear about this. And I also want to mention that I'm also the senior researcher for toolsforfreedom.com, which is a storefront website. We sell a lot of natural supplements, including olive leaf extract, including things like vitamin O, which is an oxygen supplement that can help oxygenate your body and get rid of disease. So there's plenty of great natural supplements there you can take to protect yourself. There are things that you can do without having to rely on drugs and vaccines.
Well said. Getting the health under control and strengthening that immune system is key. Once that's under control, in your view, Makia, what's the next step? How does a listener chip away at this global organization to, let's just say, implement the New World Order, global order, one world order? I always thought it was interesting how a guy that starts Microsoft, a computer software company, is now putting mostly all of his fortune, seemingly, into healthcare. I always thought that, that's been over 10 years, I think, but I always found that to be interesting. What can listeners do, certainly to strengthen their immune system? What can they do as far as niching away at this global rule?
I think that's going to come down to people's area of interest and skill and talent. It's definitely important to get your information from different sources, from alternative sources. The mainstream media has long been bought and sold out. It's basically just pushing the agenda. They're the narrative managers. They're managing the perception of nations in the world, and they want you to believe something because it's going to serve their masters. So get away from the mainstream media. Get your information from truth sources, and really do your own research about things. Then, in your own way, find a way that a cause, a passion that you feel is important. Some people are pushing back against genetically modified food by raising awareness about that and supporting organic industries and starting organic farms. Some people are pushing back against the mandatory vaccines by educating people about that. Everyone has their own area to push back against this system. But this New World Order system is affecting every area of our lives. It's affecting finance, it's affecting health, it's affecting education, it's affecting media, information. There's really no area that's not affecting, because it's trying to create a tyrannical worldwide system. So people need to push back in whatever way helps them. The key is always going to be to share truthful information, to not trust authorities when they're trying to trick you and deceive you into giving up your rights and freedom. And it's going to be to decentralize. There's decentralized platforms on the internet that can't be censored. Cash is decentralized in a way and anonymous. Buying food locally from farmers markets rather than big corporations is another way to bring decentralized. So placing an emphasis on decentralization in all areas of your life.
Beautifully said. Ladies and gentlemen, Makia Freeman. Makia, once again, where listeners can find your work, your website, and donate to your program.
Thank you. Yes. TheFreedomArticles.com is my main alternative media independent news website. We have a very limited, operation here, so any donations would be greatly appreciated, even just $1 or $2 a month to do all the hard work and research that we do to bring you the truth. Please donate. There are links on the site. And then I'm also with toolsforfreedom.com, which is a storefront with much the same great information that I write about, and you can get reports and DVDs and natural health supplements there.
Thank you, Makia. Looking forward to inviting you back on the program.
Thanks, Ian. Have a great day.
Makia Freeman. So, folks, you've got it there in a nutshell. Alternatively, what's happening globally. Makia has been looking into this for over 10 years. A. Ralph Epperson, author of the book New World Order. Unfortunately, that hour we had some technical issues. We're going in and out. But some of the information he was revealing after 50 years of researching is eye-popping. Makia mentioned David Icke. He's been on this program. Jordan Maxwell, his name wasn't addressed, but again, he's 80 years old, and he's been researching the puppeteering going on in Hollywood for 50 years. 50 years. Same with A. Ralph Epperson. So you've got here people like Makia, for instance, over a decade of researching what's going on, saying, "Hey, this is your mainstream media is not painting you a thorough picture. In fact, it's not even accurate." And like Ray McGovern mentioned on this program, who used to hand deliver briefings to Bush Sr. in the White House, almost 30 years he spent, high-level CIA. He said on this very program, he said, "Look, Ian, actually, you know what? I'll bring it right up and I'll read it verbatim. We no longer have any real sense of free media. The only hope now is people like you who can repair the damage and get people listening to people who know what they're talking about." A guy like Makia Freeman, he knows what he's talking about. Donate to his program, read his blogs, his articles, his website. I mentioned DC Dirty Laundry. That's just one of his outlets. Make a change, folks. Understand what's happening. Okay? And know that some of these rights that you enjoy are swiftly disappearing and dissipating. Is this really a man-to-machine element? What's going on here? Is there something more in your control? And certainly putting microchips in vaccinations is under your control. Nobody should be putting anything in your body. That's a complete violation of your body. I don't think anybody should be emitting arsenals into the air you breathe, yet that's happening. That's being permitted to happen globally. NASA's doing it. This is fact. People refer to it as chemtrails. That's a violation of your airspace. And you let another human being do that to you. What gives any member of the human species any right to dictate how you live your life? If you have a problem with that, then you need to talk. If you don't have a problem with it, well, fold your hands, do nothing. That's your choice, folks. We'll be back next hour. That's me, Ian Trottier, Discuss the Truth. I'll be bringing on JP Lindstroth for a 4th hour quadruple header today because of demand. JP Lindstroth joining in about 15 minutes. I'll be back in a few. You've tuned in to Discussion to Truth.